We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
In the 1960s, the two most powerful nations on Earth were pouring billions into a race for the heavens. The United States and the Soviet Union marshaled their greatest minds and pushed technology to its absolute limit, all for the glory of planting a flag on the moon. But they had a competitor they never saw coming. A Zambian schoolteacher who planned to beat them both with a 17-year-old girl, 2 cats, and a rocket made from an oil drum. This is the unbelievable and almost forgotten story of the Afronauts. The year is 1964. The Cold War is at a fever pitch and the space race is in full swing. The Soviets have already sent the first satellite, Sputnik, and the first man, Yuri Gagarin, into orbit. A determined America, led by JFK, has publicly promised to land a man on the moon by the end of the decade. It's a global battle of ideology and technology. But on October 24th, 1964, another story was kicking off. Thousands of miles from Cape Canaveral, the British flag was lowered for the last time in northern Rhodesia, and the new flag of an independent Zambia was raised. It was a moment of incredible pride and optimism. For the first time, Zambians were masters of their own destiny. And in this new dawn of freedom, one man looked up at the sky and saw an opportunity. His name was Edward Makuka Nkoloso, a grade school science teacher, a World War II veteran, and a fiery activist in the independence movement. Nkoloso was a man of unique vision. While his new government was busy with the earthly challenges of building a nation, Nkoloso's ambitions were, let's say, a little more extraterrestrial. He wasn't content with just joining the community of nations. He wanted Zambia to lead humanity into the cosmos. So he founded the Zambia National Academy of Science, Space Research and Philosophy. It was a grand title for what was really a totally unofficial program run out of a dusty, abandoned farmhouse. From there, Nkoloso announced his plan. Zambia would not only go to the moon, it would beat the Americans and the Soviets there. He was even eyeing Mars. When the world's media caught wind of this, they chuckled. But Edward Nkoloso was deadly serious. Of course, a space program needs astronauts. And Nkoloso began recruiting his own elite corps. He called them Afronauts, a proud Pan-African statement. His star recruit was a 17-year-old girl who has come to be known as Martha Mwambwa, who Nkoloso dreamed would be the first woman on the moon. A handful of other young recruits, all swept up in Nkoloso's patriotic dream, joined her. They were ready to serve their country. The only problem was the training. Without a NASA-sized budget, Nkoloso had to get creative. His training methods were unconventional, to say the least. To simulate the disorienting feeling of weightlessness, he'd put his Afronauts inside a big oil drum and roll them down a steep hill. To get them used to freefall, he'd put them in a rope swing, get it going as high as it could, and then cut the rope at the very top. But maybe the weirdest part was his plan for walking on the moon. Nkoloso was convinced, through his own research, that the only way to do it was on your hands. So his Afronauts spent hours practicing this special upside-down walk. The mission plan was just as fantastic. The rocket that would carry them to the stars was named Dikalu-1, after Zambia's first president. It was a drum-shaped vessel made of aluminum and copper that Nkoloso insisted was space-worthy. The launch was scheduled for Zambia's Independence Day, supposedly from the middle of the national stadium. But the government quickly shut that down. And the moon was just the beginning. The ultimate goal was Mars. The crew for that trip was slated to include Martha, 2 cats, and a Christian missionary. The missionary's job was to make contact with the primitive Martians. But in a surprisingly forward-thinking move, Nkoloso specifically ordered him not to force Christianity on the locals. As you might imagine, Nkoloso's grand ambitions ran into some very earthly problems. The first and biggest was money. He wrote passionate letters to UNESCO and other international groups requesting around £7 million. A truly astronomical sum. He was met with total silence. The program got no government funding and remained Nkoloso's personal project. To the international press, this was all just a quirky, laughable story from a new African nation. A funny sideshow to the real high-tech efforts of the superpowers. But the real problems were closer to home. His star trainee, Matha, fell pregnant and left the program to be with her family. Other Afronauts started to lose interest. The initial patriotic excitement faded, replaced by complaints about the bizarre training and the fact that they weren't getting paid. The ambitious program, born from a wave of national pride, was slowly grinding to a halt. The Dekalu-1 never launched. The Afronauts never made it to orbit. And in 1969, as the world watched Neil Armstrong take his one small step, the Zambian space program just fizzled out. History is full of these strange, almost unbelievable stories. They remind us that big dreams and wild imaginations can pop up in the most unexpected places. If you find these footnotes of the past as fascinating as we do, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another journey into the untold. So what are we supposed to make of Edward Nkoloso and his Afronauts? For decades, the story has been told as a joke, a bizarre footnote of failure. Even Zambia's first president later said the program was seen as more for fun than anything else. And it's easy to see why. Oil drums and space cats make for a great punchline. But just writing it off as the crazy scheme of an eccentric man means you're missing the point. Think about it. Here was a man who fought for his country's independence. In the excitement of that new freedom, maybe he simply believed that anything was possible. In a world dominated by the old colonial powers, Nkoloso's dream was a radical statement. An African nation didn't need permission to reach for the stars. It was a defiant act of imagination. Then there's the other, more intriguing theory, that the whole thing was a brilliant piece of satire. Some historians think Nkoloso's space program was actually a clever parody of the Cold War superpowers. Was he holding up a distorted mirror to their massive, self-important ambitions? By copying the language of the space race, but using only what was available to him, oil drums and tire swings, he might have been mocking the sheer absurdity of it all. It was his way of saying that Africans could dream just as big, and he was using absurdity to comment on the absurd. So was Edward Nkoloso a visionary, a crackpot, or a brilliant satirist? The truth is, he was probably a little bit of all three. He was a man whose dreams were way bigger than his budget, a patriot with baffling methods, and an educator whose real lesson might have been about ambition itself. The story of the Zambian space program isn't really about getting to space. It's a story about the human spirit. It's proof that the desire to explore and achieve the impossible is universal. It doesn't just live in the gleaming labs of NASA. It also lives in a dusty field in a newly independent Zambia. The tale of the Afronauts is still one of the most bizarre and wonderful footnotes of the space race. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most audacious dreams are the ones that never leave the ground. And it shows that the ambition to reach for the stars isn't limited by borders, budgets, or even the pull of gravity.